Greetings, everyone. This is the Cobalt Helper. We've got a house rule that makes sense. I am calling Encounter Threat. So what's it all about? It's an alternative to random encounters. So the question is, how often should your players be resting? And more specifically, are they resting too much? And what does that mean? That would mean that for almost every fight, they have all their best powers, their action surges, their fireballs, whatever the case may be, and they're just able to easily wipe the room because they have their best stuff. You want the players to have a sense of challenge, that this isn't just going to be a cakewalk, that we're going to go into this room and I really can't use my best stuff because we need to push deeper, and if I just unload all my stuff and we just rest, there's going to be consequences, and that's going to be a problem. At least that's what I like to do. I mean, if you want the heroes to feel like they're wiping every room in three turns, and that's everybody's having fun, that's cool. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about creating a sense of challenge, and then a real sense of achievement that we really, we got through this room efficiently, and it was a really good thing we did. So the problem with random encounters is what I ran into was I have a group, and they had two deadly encounters back to back. So they had some before, but this was a bit of a tipping point to where everyone started to agree that there was too much focus on these random encounters. That several sessions going through these deadly encounters, and they're fine for what they are, but we're not progressing in the dungeon. We've got this cool dungeon, and we want to see the rooms, and we're not seeing it. So that's a problem. And then also, the case you rest, and then if you have a nasty random encounter shortly thereafter, you have to use some powers to survive, and you're going to get wounded. And then there's just immediately a sense of, we didn't even get into in any of the rooms of the dungeon, and we really kind of almost feel like we need to rest again. So now you're just in this rest loop, which was not the point of the mechanic. So you could tinker with it, maybe dial down the threat or try to have random encounters less often, but I still think potentially you're going to have these same problems. So the solution I came up with, thinking it through, to these problems, is something I'm calling Encounter Threat. What's the difference? You're still going to roll whenever the players want to rest. And again, they can rest whenever they want. I don't want to get into this thing of the DM just sort of arbitrarily deciding, oh, I feel like you're resting too much, so I'm gonna hammer you. I don't like that. I want there to be an objective mechanic that everybody knows, and they can make their decisions, and you live with the consequences. And it's sort of fair and objective. You're going to roll, and if you roll a certain value, then the DM is going to get what's called threat. And so what is that? It's the ability in a future encounter to apply a buff. So again, now we're not, the heroes are always proceeding through the dungeon. They're unveiling the rooms. The story's unfolding. It's not being held up by random encounters. And you're never going to come into the situation where you're going to have like a random encounters back to back that are sort of like, bogging things down. So you're going to go through the natural dungeon, you're going to see all the rooms, but if you're not wise about how you're using your powers and you're having to rest a lot, you're going to eventually get to a room, and the threat's going to bubble up, and it's going to be really tough, and you're going to realize that, oh my gosh, this is so tough because we spent so much time resting, we weren't efficient with our powers. You might even need to retreat. You might have to retreat and come back. You might be able to go into that end of the dungeon. You just have to give up. And then you're going to realize, wow, we really don't want to do that. We got to be smarter about how we use our powers and get through this dungeon, more efficiently. That's the idea. I think it makes sense thematically in that the more time that these monsters in these lower levels have, they're going to spawn more monsters, empower themselves, prepare, and so then it would kind of be a more threatening situation. So that kind of seems practical in that sense. But let's go ahead and take a look at how Encounter Threat actually would work. Okay, here we are at CobaltHelper.com. We've got a new button at the top, House Rules. Clicking that, we get a list of PDFs, one of which is Encounter Threat. Let's go. Okay, nice PDF comes up describing what Encounter Threat is, a little box about how random encounters have some downsides. But let's get into it. At each rest, there is a random chance to generate threat. Threat is an effect the DM can choose to activate during a future encounter. So on a short rest, a single player is going to roll a d12, and on a long rest, 3 players are going to roll. So the random threat outcome table, 1, 2, or 3, some sort of threat is going to be pulled up. 1, DM's going to roll a d8, 8 being the most threatening effect. 2, they're only going to roll a d6, and on a 3, just a d4. So only a less threatening thing is possible. Now the idea is the DM would roll that behind the screen, and they can choose any threat up to that number. So if they really want a different threat, they can. So the players are going to know threat is building, but they're not going to have any idea what actual threats are in store for them. There's no way they can prepare. So what are they? We go to the threat effect table. Roll of a 1. Monster Fortuned. Reroll a to hit or saving throw of 1 monster. So have an encounter. My bugbear goes to hit, misses. I announce I'm playing Monster Fortuned, and I can reroll. Next one, Player Confounded. It's the reverse. You can stymie a player's success one time, one player. Monster Warded. Succeed on a saving throw for 1 monster. So starting to become more threatening. You can sort of probably resist a magical effect for sure. Monster Guided. Succeed on a to hit roll for 1 monster. So 1 monster on 1 hit is going to do some damage for sure. And that's the most threatening one for if you roll a 3. And moving on to 5 and 6. Monster Aegeus. Damage from 1 attack on a monster is halved. And then 6, Monsters Enraged. So this is the first one that affects all the monsters for the whole encounter. Plus 2 damage for all the monsters. And then we get into the most threatening items. Monsters Blessed, plus 2 to hit and saving throws for all monsters for the whole encounter. And number 8. So the players would have to roll a 1, and then the DM would have to roll an 8. Players Doomed. Fail on a to hit or saving throw for each player. So for the length of the encounter, it's like each player sort of has a curse on their head that the DM can activate whenever they want, 1 time per player. But it could be crucial. You know, player could roll that critical hit, and the DM could say you were doomed, and you actually miss, for example. So that's the list. The idea is, again, these pool ups. You might have many to use during one encounter, but there's a limit. You can only ever use up to 3. You can stack them. So if you wanted to do 2 monsters enraged, you could have plus 4 damage going for an encounter if you wanted to do it that way. So the idea is that this is a fair and objective mechanism to entice your players to try to be as efficient with their abilities and not rest, choose not to rest, because each time they rest, there's a small chance. The more you rest, the more this threat would bubble up, which you're going to regret potentially later on. Might have an encounter that's so difficult because you gave the DM so much threat that you might have to retreat. Who knows? Okay, that's it. So let me know what you think, and that's all I got for now. Bye.